council discussion or action may take place on a matter until such matter has been placed on the agenda and posted in accordance to the law. If at a meeting of the governmental body, a member of the public or the governmental body inquiries about a subject for which notice has not been given, or as required by the subchapter, the notice provisions of this subchapter do not apply to a statement of specific factual information given in response to the inquiry, or a recitation of existing policy in response to the inquiry. So, Cody Womack, you are here.
I came to talk about the Water District Director position that is under consideration this evening. I believe Mr. Thomason has put in the application. I think it's good to have some change, you know, in the Water District. I came to you 2 years ago, and it suggested potentially not reappointing the current director, allowing him to continue to serve. I looked at the website application you had, and I think one of the fundamental problems of the Water District has been that the directors have not been directing. The employees have been directing the directors. The directors have essentially been led around by the nose. And you know, you have all the power here. Mr. Thomason may be a great candidate. I just want to say though that if you were to want to wait a little longer to appoint, I mean, the term doesn't begin until June, and then the Water District is meeting at the end of the month. So even if you appointed in the next meeting, I've heard good things about Mr. Thomason. He comes, I believe, with Mike Carter's suggestion, which I put a lot of stock in. I would also like you to consider former city council member Laura Mabee. I think she would probably do it. I think she would do a great job. I think she has a conservative record. And you know, I believe Mr. Thomason is a former city manager for Daingerfield. I think he did a good job there, is my understanding. But if you're looking at the dynamic between the directors directing and offering direction versus the employees directing, I think you might have a better chance of leading the Water District in the right direction with a former city council member. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Womack.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Okay, so now we have no one that has signed up for the public hearing. We opened the public hearing at 6:05, and this is a conduct public hearing for the designation of the reinvestment zone in consideration of a tax abatement agreement. This was posted in the Steel Country B on May 1st, 2025. Since we have no one here to discuss that, the closing time for that will be 6:05. Now we will go to our consent agenda section. Discuss, consider, and possibly take action regarding deliberate and act to approve the minutes for April 14th, 2025. Those minutes are on pages 7 through 10. Second?
I second it.
Okay. Mrs. Smith? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Now we will go to our business section. We're going to start with canvass returns for the general election, which were May 3rd, 2025. Mrs. Sanders has just handed me these unopened envelopes. This is going to be for the first envelope is for the early voting, and the second will be for the general election. So I'm going to open the early voting now. So for the early voting for the city council positions, Mr. Ben Ramirez received 21 votes. Brandon Trefero received 5 votes. Mike Carter received 20 votes. And David Hood received 21. I have verified that these tally sheets are correct. I'd like for the council to view these. Okay, now I'm going to open the, election day envelope. Okay, so on election day, Mr. Ben Ramirez received 22 votes. Brandon Trefero received 5 votes. Mike Carter received 29 votes. And David Hood received 19 votes. I have verified that these tally sheets do match with the return sheet. I'd like the council to view those. So we have verified that both the early voting and the election day voting numbers do match up with the tally sheets. And those who were appointed to our 3 positions are Ben Ramirez, Mike Carter, and David Hood. The administrator, administrator of the issuance of the certificate of election, the state, sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, we're gonna deliberate and take action to approve ordinance number 05032025, declaring the results of the general election held in the city of Daingerfield on May 3rd, 2025. That ordinance is on pages 11 and 12.
Make a motion to declare the results of the general election held in the city of Daingerfield.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ayers. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Hood, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Now, administrator administer the issuance of certificates of election, the statement of officer and oath of office to the newly elected members Ben Ramirez, David Hood, and Mike Carter.
You will stand up and raise your right hand and repeat after me. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas,
In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas,
I state your name,
I, Ben Ramirez,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
execute the duties of office
execute the duties of office
of the city council of the city of Daingerfield,
of the city council of the city of Daingerfield,
of the state of Texas,
the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God. Just a second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your willingness to continue serving. Now we will deliberate and take action on ordinance 05122025, creating reinvestment zone for Daingerfield 259 LLC, Cubby's Daingerfield project.
So this is, like I was telling you about with tax abatement, we do have an active tax abatement application, but first we do need to, designate reinvestment zone. And if you'll see in the ordinance, it's very specific to the area, that way it is always done on a case-by-case, application. So the section is 3.526 acres, which is owned by Daingerfield 259. That is the company that is wanting to put in the Cubbies, and that is who has applied for tax abatement, which will be our next discussion. This will only cover, you'll see the survey here, and it detailed out the section that will be covered. That's the only part that the tax abatement will apply to. And the city attorney did help draft this, so it has been.
So in order for us to move on, we need to do the ordinance.
For us to move to the next step for tax abatement terms, we have to first have a reinvestment zone, yes, sir.
What are the current zones? Why wouldn't this, has never been in?
No, we've actually never taken a tax abatement application. We did tax abatement policy in October of '23 where we adopted the terms. So standard procedure for tax abatement, you have to adopt a reinvestment zone first. It's state law. We can't
So
do tax
anybody moving forward who wants to apply for tax abatement?
We'll have to
will
do
be
their-
rezoning?
Yeah, it's not a rezoning, this is just, it's called a reinvestment zone, so we know that we're gonna do tax abatement for this area and this area only. Which just simply means that it's not going to apply to the next lot over. This tax abatement will be very specific to this 3.526 acres and nobody else. So when the next person comes in, another company, another organization that wants to apply for a tax abatement, say they're on the other side of Daingerfield, we would then do another reinvestment zone for that specific area. That allows you to do a case-by-case reinvestment tax abatement.
In other words, so we're doing things as a commercial, not anyone coming in wanting to do something residential.
It's not residential, no.
Yes.
I make a motion to move forward with ordinance number 05122025, creating a reinvestment zone for Daingerfield 259 LLC, Cubby's Daingerfield project.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion with, Mr. Hood, second with Mr. Ayers. All in favor? None opposed. Okay, consideration and approval of terms for drafting a tax abatement agreement for Daingerfield 259 LLC, Covey's Daingerfield project.
Okay, so we do have an active application. I did detail it for y'all. I actually put in here our current tax abatement criteria and consideration, and then I did the memo that detailed out where Covey's meets the requirements. This action is just simply for you to tell me what terms you want me to draft in the tax abatement agreement. Our city attorney will be the one to draft that agreement so that we're ensuring everything is above. But if you'll see on page 20, this is the memo that I put. The minimum capital investment is, the project investment amount is listed at $5 million, which significantly exceeds the $50,000 minimum required under our policy. The job creation and retention is expected to create 15 full-time jobs, meeting the minimum requirement of at least 2. Economic impact and city goals. It does align with city's economic goals by adding $4.5 million in annual fuel sales and $2.4 million in retail sales, directly supporting expansion of local tax base. Property zoning, location, and compliance, it does comply with all our current zoning. There's none of that we will not have to rezone anything. The applicant has confirmed that all taxes are current, there's no outstanding litigation. The reinvestment zone has been adopted. The employee threshold amount, they stated the range will be 30,000 to 60,000 for those 15 jobs. We may want some clarity there if you want, I can ask for that, but that's their range for right now. The application, we do not have a for sure schedule right now because of the text dot limitations that we've got going on with Covey, so I can't provide that as of yet. There's no adverse effects on public service, health, safety we can supply. We've already addressed the sewer issue there, and fire and health and police department will be able to handle this. Recommended abatement terms, it matches with the term length of 7 years, which is consistent with our policy for projects under 10 million. The abatement percentage is 100% for years 1 through 5, decreasing to 80% in year 6 and 60% in year 7. I would also include that we would need performance benchmarks in the abatement agreement so that we can ensure that they are doing projected 15 jobs and demonstrate the annual sales targets. You can include, if you'd like, a clause requiring reasonable efforts to hire locally, which they fully intend to do. I've spoken with them at length about that. We'll have standard recapture provisions should they fail to meet the agreed upon investment. Once you guys tell me what terms you would like in the abatement agreement, I will have the city attorney draft it. It will come back to you at the next meeting, as well as go to the Covey's for them to agree to those terms as well. 259.
Are these standard terms?
These are the terms that are, you mean the recommended ones?
Yeah.
That's I pulled those directly from what matches our policy. So you'll see back over here on page 17, that's the policy that we adopted in October of 23. The terms that I'm recommended match the policy that we have in place. They meet the standard for the max of 7 years because their projected project is 5 million. And that, if you look on there, it's from 1 to 3 million is the 7 year.
Are they still negotiating with the DOT?
They have terms back from DOT on what they have to do. Now they're trying to figure out how they're gonna pay for what DOT wants. And that's what part and parcel of the tax abatement is for, so that they can recoup some of the money that they're gonna lose doing what TxDOT has asked for.
Do you know the plans? Do you have any idea what they do?
Turning lane, they're gonna probably have to install a turning lane, which is gonna run them about 500,000 approximately to do.
Are they
In
gonna
addition-
line up?
I don't think they're gonna do that. I think they're just gonna install a turn. But, again, I haven't seen the full plan, so I don't want to misspeak. It's just.
So do you have any idea how long it's probably gonna take, or they don't?
I can't give you any projected timeline right now because they're still trying to work on how their money, the tax abatement application is part and parcel of helping them to see that they're gonna make that money back and get into the city. If we're talking sales tax, it's a significant amount of sales tax that's gonna come into our city once this is up and running. The tax abatement is just property tax based on the per amount. It's not gonna be, losing that property tax is gonna be well worth the gain for employment for our city, growth for our city, and the sales tax that will come back into our city that we can put back into other programs here.
So the property tax, the abatements for after the building's built?
If it's approved, so the process goes that if it's approved now and in June, it will not go into effect until the following January. And that's standard.
So will the tax price, still raise it?
Yes. There's a lot more processes behind the scenes where once you guys have approved it, the tax abatement agreement has been done, then I send it off to the council office, and they go from there. But it does not start until January 1 of the following year.
So this is just something to get the ball rolling to make sure that we
Yes,
have.
I need to know what terms, if any, council wants me to get drafted for the tax abatement agreement to bring back for approval.
Well, you went over the terms, do you think there's anything that we need to add?
No, I think these terms are, they match with what we currently have. I would definitely recommend putting in benchmark, performance benchmarks, so we can ensure that the company is doing what they said they will do, so that, we don't wanna give this out and then they don't do it, and then we have no recourse to pull it back if they're failing to comply. So I definitely would recommend performance benchmarks and the compliance recapture. And the city attorney has drafted these before, so he's gonna draft that. And if there's anything in the first round that you want taken out or added, we can always do that.
Are you gonna put a timeline on the benchmark, and how often we're gonna do that?
I don't know exactly what they are at this moment. I'm working with the city attorney on that, so he's advising, because he has done this before,
So
so.
we're just voting on
Terms.
getting it started.
Yes. What terms, if you're in agreement with the term length of 7 years consistent with our policy, then I'll go forward with that.
I make a motion to approve the tax abatement for Daingerfield 259 LLC, Chubby's, Daingerfield.
Okay, Mr. Ayers has made a motion, do we have a second?
If I-
Mr. Ramirez,
If I can get just a little clarity on that motion, if your tax abatement terms are,
To abatement. It's not in here. The terms are as is listed, is that what you want me to say?
yes, if that's what you, the terms we discussed, the ones I said, is that as presented, is that fine?
That's presented.
Yes, sir.
And that's adding the benchmark as well.
Yes, sir. If you're going with as presented, then it's the recommended abatement terms that I'll list here for you. Yes, we'll do that. Yes, sir. Thank you.
okay. So we have a motion, Mr. Ayers, we have a second, Mr. Ramirez. All in favor? None opposed. Okay, we're going to discuss and act upon a resolution approving the, execution and delivery of a grant agreement for water system improvements and resolving other matters relating to the subject. Mr. Will Smith is here with SPF to answer any questions that we may have. The resolution is on pages 23 and 24.
I put a presentation, excuse me, at all of your spots, and I'll just go over that really briefly. So, good evening, Mayor and Council, and members of city staff. Specialized Public Finance Incorporated serves as the city's financial advisor, and we help process these loans and other debt that the city has issued. So if you flip to page 1, this is just an overview of the process. I'm sure most of y'all are familiar with this. This is the, I think, 5th one of these that you guys have done through the Texas Water Development Board. But on March 13th, the Texas Water Development Board approved the application and request for financing for the city of Daingerfield. And then on May 5th, which was 2 weeks ago, the Texas Water Development Board set rates. And that final interest rate on the loan, and there's two pieces to this, and my I meant to say this, my presentation actually relates to items F, G, and H, and I'll explain that when I get to the end. The final interest rate on the loan is 3.21%. We'll talk about how good of a rate that is here in a little bit. It's a 30-year term, and these certificates of obligation are callable in 10 years. If you have any questions about that, let me know. And as a point of comparison, when I was here on the 10th of March and we showed you the estimates, we used an estimated rate of 3.51, so it's 30 basis points lower than that. So we saved some interest based on the original estimates. The project qualifies for principal forgiveness, or what we call grant funding through the Texas Water Development Board. So your loan amount on this project is $385,000. That's 10% of the plan of finance proceeds. The principal forgiveness piece, the grant piece, which represents 90% of the total plan of finance, is $3.425 million. And I spoke with Ms. Jones earlier, and I sent this information to her. This total for the city of Daingerfield through the Texas Water Development Board financing since 2020, the 2022A bonds that were issued and the principal forgiveness, that was a zero interest loan in 2022A. Anyway, total for Texas Water Development Board funding for the city of Daingerfield is $17.66 million. Of that, the city is qualified for grants totaling $11 million. And I just want to commend the leadership of the council and city staff. We've talked a lot amongst ourselves that you guys are like the poster child for taking advantage of the Texas Water Development Board funding. So congratulations on that. That's a big deal. And I sent that information to Ms. Jones if she wants to share that with you also. So today what you're doing is you're considering authorizing the loan to issue, authorizing the loan issuance to the Texas Water Development Board and also accepting the grant from the Texas Water Development Board. That's item G. The next page, I think page 2 is really the most important page in this presentation, and it's your total annual debt service and pro forma. There's a few things I want to point out. One is on the far left, almost the far left, second from the left column, you'll see the number of connections. Our pro formas assume that you're not ever going to get another connection. Obviously you are, but this is a very conservative approach. The second thing is budgeted operating revenues and expenditures. We also assume that those aren't going to change. Obviously, if you add connections, you're going to add revenues. You're also going to add some expenditures. But your total revenue available for debt service is about $944,000, almost $945,000. Your existing debt service is right around that $215,000 mark. And so with your new debt service, principal interest, your total debt service on that is going to be around $21,000 to $22,000 a year. So your estimated projected debt service with existing and the new debt is around $300,000 for the life of the issue. And what I want to call to your attention is that estimated and existing proposed debt service coverage on the very far right. We generally aim for about 1.5 times coverage. And if you notice, there's not a single year here where you go below 3. So that's just illustrating that you do have capacity in the future if other projects come up, which I'm sure that they will. The next page is your sources and uses of funds. On page 3, $385,000 for the loan, and then the principal forgiveness grant funding is $3.425 million. Cost of issuance, both to the Texas Water Development Board, our firm, your bond counsel, and some other fees is $85,000. And then the deposit to the construction fund will be $3.7 million for the project. The next page, page 4, is just a calendar of events, all the way up till tonight, May 12th. We've already discussed tonight, you're considering authorizing the resolution for the grant and for the loan. On May 16th, if we need to, we'll provide those closing documents. And then the closing date is June 12th. That's an estimated date right now. I think we received a note from Texas Water Development Board that they're okay with that date, so that's when you'll receive your funds. And so, specialized public finance, go to slide 6. We are recommending that you accept the grant and also the loan terms and authorize to issue those to the Texas Water Development Board. And I will entertain any questions that you have at all. Oh, I wanted to mention, so item F is you're authorizing the delivery of the grant, which is the $3.425 million. Item G is the loan, And then H is related to those, it's authorizing a resolution to open an account for these project funds. So they're all related.
We've already got plans for the funds, right?
Yes, sir. That's, well, yes.
Yes. That was part of the application process.
No other questions for Mr. Smith?
So it costs the city $385,000. City, you get to get 3.4 million, and then y'all get the 85,000 out of it. right?
Not, all that doesn't all go to us. Bond counsel, which prepared all of your documents, the Texas Water Development Board also gets a fee for, it's called an origination fee, and then our firm gets a fee as well.
Do you know how much money the water board gets? Do you know how much the fee?
It's an estimate right now, I can make sure Ms. Jones has that information.
Okay, please.
All the costs of issuance are an estimate at this point until we finally close,
Thank you.
but we'll certainly send that over.
If you will, council, if you look at it just like a standard loan that you get anywhere else, there's origination fees and such for folks that do paperwork and the hard line numbers. That's essentially what that is. Just at a higher cost when it's 3.8 million.
Making a motion to approve the resolution, on the execution and delivery of this grant agreement for the water system improvements and resolving the main matters relating to the subject.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Hood, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Ramirez has a second, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you all.
Okay, now we will discuss and act upon the ordinance 05122025-1, authorizing the issuance of the city of Daingerfield, Texas combination tax and surplus revenue certificates of obligation, series 2025B, in the principal amount of $385,000 to fund water system improvements and awarding the sale of such certificates of obligation to the Texas Water Development Board and resolving other matters relating to the subject. Which I think we just
Yes.
went through all that.
Yes, sir.
So do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. Authorizing the insurance of the city of Daingerfield, Texas, combination tax and surplus revenue certificates of obligation, series 2025B, in the principal amount of $385,000 to fund water system improvements, and awarding the sale of such certificates of obligation to Texas Water Development Board, and resolving other matters relating to the subject.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. That was a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Mr. Hood seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Now we will discuss and act upon the resolution authorizing and directing establishment of a construction account with depository bank pursuant of grant agreement, appointing authorized signatories with respect to such accounts and resolving other matters relating to the subject.
Make a motion as presented on H. I'm gonna read all
Miss-
that.
Mr. Ayers, is the motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Smith. I don't know why I couldn't keep calling you Jones. Mrs. Smith has a second. All in favor? None opposed. Okay. Now we will deliberate and take, from the table agenda item to hear, discuss, review, and possibly take action on a request from Aaron Hyde to allow variance on city ordinance section 44 to 48 truck routes. This item was tabled at last meeting, we need a motion to take an item from the table.
I make a motion to take it from the table.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Smith. She has a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Ayers has a second. All in favor? None opposed. Now we will deliberate and consider taking action on the request from Aaron Hyde to allow a variance on the city ordinance section 44-48 truck routes. Mr. Hyde is requesting permission to drive his loaded truck and trailer over the city seats or streets not designated as truck routes to reach his home at 106 Hughes Street. Citizen request on page 54, ordinance on page 55. Map of the location is on page 56. Picture of the street view is on 57.
I believe Mr. Hyde is here if you guys saw him come in. If you have questions for him, council, if not, the ordinance states that there's no trucks allowed on city streets. Mr. Hyde lives on 106 Hughes. He does have, according to the ordinance, the ability to drive his vehicle without the trailer, to his home. That is caveat in the ordinance. He is requesting that y'all give a variance to allow him to drive his loaded trailer to his home and park it at his home.
You gave us a list of the streets that are,
It's under the ordinance, so on page 55, it tells you the following streets are designated as truck routes within the city limits of the city. M.W. Watson Boulevard, Highway 11 running east from city limits to west of city limits, Broadnax being, Highway 49, and US 259 running north to south, the intersection with Watson Boulevard, Linda Drive being 259 on Watson. So any of the interior city streets you're not allowed to drive loaded trailers unless you are delivering to a business. So that is part and parcel of that's what the ordinance is written, that's how it's written. Mr. Hyde is asking for a variance to allow him to drive his loaded trailer.
And this is an open discussion, correct?
Yes,
Right now?
Yes, sir, you can ask if you.
When you say loaded, are you gonna have product on your trailer?
Mr. Hyde, would you please come to the podium, sir?
Yes, sir. At times, I do try to be loaded every day. So some days it just depends if I don't have work, if I do have work. So pretty much yes, I'll be loaded.
But you're not carrying any hazard, anything that's gonna harm the citizens.
No hazard.
Yes.
But I would say that the purpose of the ordinance is to protect city streets from overweight loads consistently being run up and down the streets. My concern, city manager and for council, is if you allow this variance, you will be bombarded with other variances of the same nature. Just as a consideration, I don't know that there are extenuating circumstances that Mr. Hyde cannot park somewhere else his trailer, but that's.
I guess my concern is, you know, with letting one, and again, I'm not just stating you, I'm just saying in other situations where somebody wants to do the same thing, and they have loads. My concern is the streets and stuff that we have here in Daingerfield. I mean, they're adequate enough for vehicles and cars and whatnot, but an abundance of trucks that could possibly be, you know, inviting if this goes forward. So that's what I was just wondering, you know, we're gonna have a lot of, you know, we don't know the weight of your truck, we don't know what's gonna.
Shows that we have, sorry.
No, go ahead, that's what I was.
We have a place in Daingerfield where they can park the trucks, it would be safe. They used to park it, I remember years ago.
Well, I mean, I can't promise a place because most of those places are privately owned, if there are. I do know that there is right off the door of the city, but I believe, I know who owns it, the county used to own that little area where they had a barn, or such park there, by the church, right in front of the church. But the county doesn't own it anymore, they auctioned it off and it's privately owned. And I'm not sure, I do know, I've been approached a couple times about people parking there, but again, it's privately owned and I don't have any city property that I could say they could park on.
The ordinance right now specifies bobtailing, right?
It does say that they can drive, yes, without their trailer.
Without trailer.
Without their trailer to their home, so he's not prohibited from riding from Deadhead to his house, he just cannot take a loaded trailer.
Mr. Hyde, do you have anything else? I mean, you lost some property, right?
Yeah, I did, I lost it. I actually, somebody stole the truck and the trailer. I recovered the trailer the same day, the truck the same day. The next day, they recovered the trailer in Dallas. I lost the car, and I had to pay for that myself.
Where was that located? Okay.
They stole it from the store in Lone Star. The 66 in Lone Star.
My concern is scary, coming right down, park, children on, movie theater, where pedestrians move around. That's my only concern there. I hate that, we met the other day, I was in my private truck, and I was in coffee and you were scurrying. And I mean, it's big rig, and you had your load down machine. It was a big unit taking up that street, and, man, I hate the situation you're in, but like I said, I can't get past scurry coming down past that part. Which is where I'm at.
Is that the only route you can take to your house?
I used to come down behind his house, but the road is too bad, the tree ends are way too low. So I can't come down through there no more. You just gonna, with the way that road is, you just gonna tear that road up and you're gonna start tearing up property. So the easiest way was for me to come down Scary, take the left, go up, Coffee Street, and just back into the yard. If I go the other way, I can't go down Georgia Pacific, because it's just gonna cause a wreck. It might not do it now, but eventually it will, because you have to get out on the opposite side of the road just to make that turn on the side street. I don't see how the trucks going to the scrap yard have been doing it. Cause you got trucks coming up from the roof and playing, cars coming up from the roof and playing. That's just way too dangerous. And then you putting your truck in the bind. When you start putting the truck in the bind, that's when you start putting the road in the bind. But if you just turn and you're not.
Well, in talking with Mrs. Jones, if you just specify these 3 streets, that knocks out all those streets. The ordinance would, he wouldn't even be able to use those streets, the Hughes Street, and all of those are right over by his house, according to this, correct?
Yes, sir. According to the ordinance, as the current ordinance sits, unless it is, there's a business that they're going to do or deliver, and they're not supposed to be on those city streets.
So that's why
According
it's scrapped.
to the current, yeah, that's why the scrap yard was, that's why they're allowed to. According to the current ordinance as it's written.
Let me say, years ago, there was an issue with trucks coming up Nickel Street over by Junior High, for that very reason, because of kids playing in the community. And so then the council decided to change and make it only come 130, and just the scrap yard, not that street, because they were tearing it up.
Right.
It was endangering the citizens.
Do we have any more questions for Mr. Hyde? Thanks, sir, appreciate it.
Council, I would say if you vote against it, allowing it, I don't think it would be unfair if we allowed Mr. Hyde some time to find a location for his trailer to park without fear of getting citations. If that's the route council's has to go, I think that would be appropriate to allow him time to find a place.
So what you're saying is he's been breaking ordinance anyway,
What's that?
if he's driving through there anyway.
He has been breaking the ordinance, that's what brought it about, in all honesty, so he got stopped, he got a citation. They noticed he was driving, he'd been told before, he was stopped, issued a citation, and then he requested to speak and find out why, and that's how we ended up before council, which is an ordinance that I do not have the authority to override.
I didn't receive a citation, and I hadn't been told that.
So you just decided to come and speak to council about it?
Well,
So-
Mr. Hyde, if you'll come up to the podium, please.
Officer Tracy, stopped me. I guess he was coming from behind the building over there as I was coming down the road, and he stopped, and he said something about it. But that's not the first or the second time Tracy have saw me coming down the road. And he's been sitting on Coffee Street before and saw me there. There's been a state trooper sitting there and saw me there. I've never been told not to come down their way, and I haven't been issued a warning or a citation. It's just, I gotta figure something, I gotta do something, I cannot take another hit like this. Insurance double, I can't take another hit. I don't feel safe for my truck being no over there now. I cannot do that again. I cannot do that again. It will put me out again. I'm a small business owner, it's just me, I'm not a company. I cannot afford to do it again. I was blessed to get my truck and my trailer